Jimmy, first of all, thank you for coming on to Mind Talks. And as you know, Mind Talks is the way I get into people's minds, either if they're successful or they're leaders. And Jimmy, you come under both these categories so beautifully.
Oh,
So thank you, sir. And as an old boy of St. Joseph's and a guy I look up to a lot, especially for your philanthropic heart, your clear thinking, and the amount you've done for others. It's just, for me, it's awe inspiring.
oh dear.
So, Jimmy, thank you for being here. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to gain from this small chit chat that I'm going to have with you.
Well, thank you, Ian. Boy, that's kind of flattering. You're almost making me blush here.
You look nice as it is.
And
So,
you don't
let's
need
get
to
a
look
blush.
down on me. You don't need to look up at me because you're much taller, my friend.
Okay. So, it's going to be that kind of a chit chat, Jimmy. And
It's got
what I want you to do, Jimmy, just, snippets of your life as you see the important turn points, uh, as you want to call it out. So just take it easy, whatever you want to talk about, as long as you want to talk about it. I want to just you to share what you think your life has done, and especially the change points, the turn off points, because that's where Mind Talks really makes a big dent in
Mhm.
where you made those changes and how those changes affected your life.
Okay.
Jimmy,
Well, the
over
question is, do we have a day, a week, a month, or a year?
to
Because so much has happened, and of course, I still wonder whether people will still love me when I'm 64, which is what I am right now. But over these last, 64 years, I can't believe how fast it's gone. Like you, Ian, I went to a fantastic school, Jesuit school. My education has always been part of I call it the Jesuit model, which I think does reflect in my life, and I think a lot of others who have had the privilege of
Terrific.
attending the same school. So I grew up in Bangalore. Uh, in in terms of academic career, went through the traditional role, which people in my general geographical area of Bangalore, the cantonment area, went through St. Anthony's Boys School. Uh, on the way up to St. Joseph's, and then continued on at St. Joseph's College of Commerce, did my chartered accountancy, went back, did my law, and then came to the United States, did my MBA. That was a major professional change in my life. Took on this career in about 1985, 86 in what we call the world of supply chain management, uh, using a lot of my accounting background, but also the ability to speak and motivate people. And for the last 35 years professionally, I've kind of carved out a little niche in the area of supply chain cost management. So focusing mostly on taking billions of dollars out of the supply chain from virtually every type of industry in every part of the world. So that was the sort of academic professional career. And in terms of business, we grew up in, as you probably know, and many of your listeners would know, this a Parsi community, very, very entrepreneurial, philanthropic. So I guess I just inherited that from my community as
Brilliant.
much as the family.
Sure.
And business-wise, we called ourselves excise contractors, which is really another way for saying liquor barons.
Mhm.
And it was a very big business in the 1970s. As one of our partners, Ashok Shinde, said when I was pretty young, I remember he said, "Baba," which is small Kai, I guess. You always remember north, south, east, or west. Arak business is the best. And of course, I laughed about it. But seriously, today I make a living in the world of supply chain. And when I look at our Arak business, we own the whole damn supply chain.
Very
You
good.
know, we had Mr. As part of our, let's call it conglomerate, of all these partners joining together for a common cause. If I looked at the supply chain of Arak, we started with sugar molasses, which of course came from the farmers. That was purchased because it comes to us through the government.
Right.
And then from then on, it was distilled
Mhm.
in a distillery called Gemini Distilleries, owned by one of our partners, Mr. Basaraj. And then we transported it to the depot on what used to be called at least Mysore Road.
Mhm.
We had a factory there where we had a bottling plant, and the tankers, which would be the equivalent of oil tankers or whatever. So we owned the tankers that moved it to uh, Mysore Road. We owned a bottling plant, so we owned the manufacturing with everything from assembly lines to storage tanks to crating and transportation, etc. We owned all the transport that took it to the, in those days, 210 Arak shops in Bangalore. We owned all the 210 Arak shops. The money came in, lots of cash came in every morning to the office. It was counted and put into the bank.
Right.
In fact, even uh, the bank, one of the banks that we banked with, Sri Sudha Cooperative Bank, was also owned by us. So,
Wow.
that was sort of funny. And then, so basically from sugar molasses to putting the money in the bank, we owned everything.
Wow.
And of course, as you probably know, growing up in India and still are in India, it's a lot of politics behind the world of Arak in particular. And one of our partners, or part of the consortium here, was Mr. K.N. Guruswamy, who owned the Deccan Herald. So we had a little bit of a muzzling of the government bureaucrats who tried to do sort of things that made life uncomfortable. And so you have some way of pushing back. So I grew up with that sort of life, and very, very influential in the political scene uh, from the back, of course. And today I look at it, what we see around us is just a magnification of what I experienced as a kid. I didn't even realize it, deciding who the chief minister is going to be, who's the home minister, who's going excise minister. It was all this liquor lobby, contractor lobby, and things like that. So basically, from that position of sort of power mongering, moving things around, I came to America in 1983 with the intention of just going out for a couple of years and, picking up an MBA and coming back. So not you, but the family and the community could boast that, oh, he's from America and stuff like that.
Wow.
But things changed. And you asked me for a defining moment. And the defining moment for me was when I met a professor actually in marketing, not even in
Mhm.
supply chain and marketing, a gentleman named Dr. David Burt. And
Right.
he kept talking about this thing called procurement. And I was rather outspoken. I think you probably know that personally, but your viewers may be, not aware of that. And so I would raise my hand and simply say, "Excuse me, Dr. Bird, you keep talking about this thing called procurement." And quite honestly, I've had some experience. I mean, as an auditor, I was out with KP Rao and Company in India. As an auditor, I've audited, things like HAL and the big movie theaters and stuff like that, and my own, Arak business and non-profits and stuff that I've been on the board. Quite honestly, procurement can hardly be called a strategic, part of the company. I mean, what do you do? Three bids, take the lowest bid. What brains do you need to do that? How can you call it strategic?
Right.
And he asked me to come to his office. And having grown up in an Indian environment in Jesuit, I thought, oh my gosh, he's going to hit me. Of course, I was 27 years old. I thought I'm going to go for a caning. And he called me to his office. He made me write on the board behind me. He said, Jimmy, you're a chartered accountant, so I'm sure you know a lot of the accounting jargon. Go ahead and write down behind me. Take any manufacturing company and just write down what are the five, sort of elements that make up the total revenue: material, labor, overhead, et cetera, et cetera. So I, oh gosh, this is a very academic thing, stupid stuff. I wrote it down. And then he made me write, okay, now for every dollar of revenue, go down your list: material, labor, overhead, et cetera. How much of that do you think is paid to a third party? Well, I made some calculation. I said about 60 to 70%. And he turned around and said, so Jimmy, you're telling me as a leader, as a businessman, that you and people like you are willing to put 60 to 70% of every revenue dollar into the hands of these procurement people to spend on third parties, and you call them low level, they don't need brains, et cetera, et cetera. I think that was about the biggest turning point in my life, because it opened up my mind and said, wow, the knowledge I have, the experience I have could be channeled to do two things. One, to educate, because education's been very deep in my life, my family's life, etc. Not just in the degrees that I've obtained, but the help that my family and I have given to educational institutions. So the first thought was, wow, I can join this man and start developing content a book, a video, a seminar, or whatever that can educate people, including people like me,
Right.
who until then did not realize the importance or the strategic importance of this particular functional area. And I thought this is an opportunity,
Mhm.
education, but at the same time, business. So I put that business thing together. I said, wow, if the world out there is uneducated, forgive me for using that term, it's a very harsh term, is uneducated in the importance or the mechanisms that can make something like this possible, well, why don't we do two things? We lift up the academic background and we also use the same education in companies. So I joined him as a sidekick, literally, to write a book called Zero Based Pricing.
Mhm.
And from that, that was in the mid to late 80s. Remember, Al Gore had not invented the internet at that time,
Right.
so we had to go back and forth. So it took a little while, and that also caused me to stay in the United States. And in the late 80s, we came out with this book called Zero Based Pricing, along with Warren Norquist of Polaroid. And before I knew it, I was going out and making some speeches on, uh, you know, cost modeling and zero-based pricing and use and negotiation, etc. And people would come back to me and say, loved your speech, and would you be able to do something in-house? And before I knew it, I was doing these type of workshops for some of the biggest and best companies. Dow Chemical was one of the early ones, and
Nice.
Hewlett Packard was the big one. When HP started this in 1990 with another mentor of mine, Gene Richter, God bless his soul. Um, and and then it just took off from there, because once HP started demonstrating
Yeah.
the millions and billions of dollars of savings, then everyone from IBM and Dell and TI and Motorola, Nokia and Shell and all the oil companies and virtually everyone from mining, around the world. And that's been the last 30 some years.
Wow.
So education, um, business, because I do want, and I always tell people, uh, the train comes by and suddenly, if you, I call it the train of opportunity. So the train of opportunity presented itself in the form of Dr. Burt. I could have continued ridiculing him and
Right.
fighting him and academically challenging him, but instead I said, he's got a really good point. And then I made a business out of it as well. So
That's
I think that
a
was
great one.
the biggest learning. But along the way, so many other things, Ian, it'll take us weeks to go through.
Wow, that is such a brilliant story. Jimmy, that was awesome. I mean, I know you for so long, but I didn't know this part of it. So I'm
Oh,
so happy
really?
to be privy to that. So, Jimmy, now, so you just chucked up the India thing, even though you were in such a powerful position, making a ton of money. You just abandoned it, or what happened? I mean, I'm just trying to.
Well, that's a good question. In fact, a lot of people were, I think, disappointed, that uh, they were expecting me to come back with ideas and help, change the business and modernize it. And of course, in those days, the partners would always look at, oh, we need to go into computers, I mean, it's like, and what I always felt is stick to your core competency book.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to take ARAC people and make them Mr. Narayan Murthy of Infosys or something
Right.
like that.
Right.
So that was a little bit of a disappointment. But no, my family was fantastic. It was, hey, if this is your love, because I called, back home and said, look, this is something I'm really excited about, because I started teaching. The best way to write a book is to write a few chapters and teach it in a class, and see the feedback. So I started teaching in the spring of 1985.
Mhm.
I started with actually finance and investments, and then started this, what we call contract pricing, strategic cost management. And I was only 10 years older than my typical students. So there was a closer bond. I was this young professor, and I was just so excited, full of passion to teach. And so I said, I really learned that teaching gives me unbelievable satisfaction. So on the academic side, I've taught pretty much as a philanthropic gesture, and I've made the money on the corporate side. But yeah, it was a little bit of a disappointment when I sort of announced that I'm here to at least spend a few years. And then, of course, the most important change in my life came in 1987, when I, proposed to, and then, of course, later on married my best friend, who is my wife of 31 years. And of course, that put an absolute stamp on or the lock on the door back to India, because my grandmother-in-law, God bless her soul, told me, when she gripped my hand, in 90-year-old gripping my hand, saying, "Now you listen, young man, if you ever take my granddaughter back to India, there ain't no place you can hide from Emma Byrne." So that was a clear warning. So I kind of made my life, I kind of, my professional life, and then of course my family life. But I've always been in touch with India. India's never gone away. As I think I've been going back 2, 3, 4 times a year, and I really am at a loss right now, because it's been 12, 13 months since I was there because of the unfortunate pandemic.
Yes.
But yeah.
So, looking at one of the things that I really appreciate you for, the amount of philanthropic work you've done, and I know a lot of it from the school front of it, like St. Joseph's. But I also know that you've done work in the US academic circles, and you've given a lot of, your largest there as well. So, what makes it? I mean, do you feel that this is a philosophy, or do you just say, "This is me and this is who I am"? And when you give, the more of it comes back to you. I don't know. Do you believe some of that, or can you just tell us something about
That's a very good question, Ian, and I think it needs to be addressed. Yes, I've done as much, let's say, as I could, probably a little bit more, compared to others with the similar success. Yeah, but I'll be honest, and I don't want anyone to misunderstand this. Uh, when people come to me and thank me for whatever I've done, I share a little secret which I'm willing to share with your audience. Yes, there's always this little superstition, and I call it a superstition because there's no direct correlation. I know that between the more you do, the more you get. Maybe coincidentally, I've been blessed to get, but I think that has nothing to do with giving. It's been to do with your intellect, your hard work, your talents, your network, etc. So business is business. But one thing I'll tell people with no hesitation whatsoever, I get more pleasure, satisfaction giving than I think the person on the other side receiving it. So when I tell people who come to thank me for making a change in their lives and taking them from a place in St. Joseph's to master's degree, and that we've got a couple of Josephites we've done that with, uh, I tell them, look, one, the satisfaction I get seeing you coming back to Bangalore and attending your wedding or something like that is so fantastic. But also knowing that you made a change in someone's life, I think no money can buy that for
in
me, at
comparison to
least.
that?
No money can buy that for me. And we've done it with so many. So, philanthropy, I think, comes from, you asked me, does it come from the heart? Yes, it does. But I think, quite honestly, and I do give a lot of credit to the family environment and to the Parsi community, and I've had mentors who have been just absolutely standout people. I kind of read you, a message from one of them. So I think, we all do it in different ways. When I look at people like Ratan Tata and stuff, they could do it in the hundreds of millions and billions. Then I could do it in the millions. Someone else does in the hundreds of thousands, and some people give in the 50s and $100. But it makes no difference. It's all apart. I can share with you, in terms of philanthropy. Uh, of course, I think many of you and your listeners would have at least seen the movie My Fair Lady,
Yes.
or read the book Pygmalion. And I love that one little part I'd like to share with your listeners. When Higgins and Pickering are talking about the amount of money that Eliza Doolittle came up with for getting trained, it was pittance, right? But as Higgins says, "Dear Pickering," he says, "compared to what she earns, etc., she's given me a fortune."
Wow.
You know, so it's based on your ability.
Yeah.
And in this one regard, I share with people, when it comes to philanthropy, there's first of all, it's giving. Whether you give 50, whether you give 50 million, you're giving. So just the thought of giving is itself laudable. But some people talk about, well, the guy's name's on this building and stuff like that. And, yeah, sometimes it's the school or the institution that wants to recognize you, and you've got to give them that opportunity, because some people feel, oh, everything should be anonymous. And I'd like to address that. It's a very important part of philanthropy that I think can impact people. And I'd like to give it through a story.
Sure.
In 2001, we had unfortunately witnessed a global shakeup through the 9/11 situation. Okay, I mean it hit the whole world was shocked,
Right.
and like everybody else, there were fundraisers going on to help the firefighters and those survivors, and also unfortunately the families of those who didn't make it. So at Francis Parker School, where my children attended, my son was, I mean, he was hardly 10 years old at that stage. Um, he was at an assembly when the principal said, or rather made an appeal to each child, and this is, I'm talking elementary school, young little children, you know, giving could be $5, $2, $10. It doesn't have to be thousands. So this little kid comes back from school and he says, Dad, I just had a ceremony in the Parsi community. We have this thing called the Naujot, which is like a first communion or a bar mitzvah. And he had about $1,200 of gifts. So he said, how much did I get? I said, well, why don't we go down to the bank and check? So we went to the bank and we saw that the deposits were about $1,200. And he said, I'd like to give $1,000. Now, this is from him personally.
Wow.
And I said, wow, son, that's pretty generous. They're expecting you to give $10, so from your piggy bank. So this is amazing. So anyway, I said, that's great. We went to the bank. We did a cashier's check, which is a bank draft, and gave it to the school. And then I got a call, as I expected, from the principal and the head of business development saying, wow, this is unbelievable. Your son has given $1,000. We wanted this to be from the children, not from the parents. I said, well, I've not given a dollar. This is all his money. He just had, and I explained it to them. They were absolutely moved. And so they asked me, would you be comfortable at the next Monday morning assembly? Could we honor him? I said, well, he's 10 years old. You have to ask him, not me. And of course, like I think many parents in this audience would say exactly what their children, Dad, I'm warning you, don't you dare put me up there. My friends will make fun of me, etc., etc. So I don't want to be up there. So I said, before you say no, let me give you both sides. First of all, the thought of giving 1,000 and then actually doing it, not talking about it, is extremely laudable.
Right.
Secondly, doing it anonymously is fantastic. I mean, that's the real giving. You don't want your name up in lights. But let's think of the third thing, son, before you make your final decision. What is the overall objective? Is the objective to help by gathering as much money as possible to give to those who need it? If so, then putting your name in front of this $1,000 will inspire others. If Zubin can do it, so can I. And so I said, think about it. And he said, oh, well, okay. And he went ahead and they did give him a little mention at and they brought him up on the stage, etc. And there were at least in my, I'd say memory here, at least 20 to 25 other kids who went back home and told their parents, Zubin did this, I'd like to do the same thing. And a target of about $4,000 or $5,000 suddenly became $25,000, $30,000.
Wow.
So that's the point I'd like to make. And the same thing happened at St. Joseph's, as I think you're very well aware, Ian, starting with the buildings. We could easily have done an anonymous building, but I was able to pick up the phone and call 3 or 4 of my classmates, of schoolmates like Mark and Sabir Bhatia and others, and basically say, hey, I've got this one building, can you do 2 or 3 more buildings? So I think in philanthropy, the first most important thing is, what is the overall objective? And the first objective should be give, then talk about the amount.
That's right.
Start with giving. So philanthropy, as you rightly pricked that button of mine, it's a very, very important part of my life and my family's life.
Awesome. Jimmy, you've seen the best of both worlds in India and in the US. If there are 1 or 2 tips that you can give those in India and 1 or 2 tips for those who want to leave India and go there, what would those tips be? Those who want to stay back and those who want to move to the US?
Well, that's a tough one. And as you correctly pointed out, I've had the best of both worlds. But I do know and have tremendous amount of friends who had nothing, I was fortunate when I came out here, but there are others who've had absolutely nothing. But here are a couple of tips for sure. One is don't come to America if all you want to do is make money.
Right.
The wrong idea. Okay, you can make money in India, you can make money in the Middle East, you can make money anywhere in the world. Okay, so don't come to America if all you want to do is make money.
Sure.
But if you want to come for an opportunity to break through barriers of, socioeconomic or even in some cases caste and things like that, where you're being held back, this is a great opportunity. The other thing I would tell people is, be true to yourself, and that goes with my cricketing background. It's something, back yourself, back yourself. You can really do whatever you want to do if you put your head down to it. And don't just, go out there with the assumption that life will just give you everything on a platter.
Right. Mhm.
And these are basic common things, but a lot of people feel, oh, I come to America, I go to this university, I get a degree, the world owes me a successful career. That I think is totally foolish. In fact, some people, and I hope I'm not, treading on, toes over here. Some people feel if they go to a brand name university, they're guaranteed success. Now, sure, it helps. It sure helps, no question about that. But for those who do not get in to a brand name university, the top tier university, I always believe in America, you know, you can go to a state university in the middle of the country with no brand name, but you will still have the same opportunity.
Right.
And so, what I tell people is, back yourself, work hard, and your biggest asset, Ian, is you.
That's right.
I tell people, who are in my classes or those whom I'm mentoring, I say, everyone wants to talk money. I don't know why it is, but they want money, money, money. Okay, given that, let's look at a person's finances. Look at the various investment opportunities, whether it's real estate, whether it's stocks and bonds and whatever. There are all sorts of investments where you begin the year at a certain level and you end the year either above that level or below that level, right? We call that a return on your investment.
Right.
And in some cases, even if you went in with great Apple and Google and stuff, you may end the year lower than the beginning. If the stock fell during the year, it's possible, okay? But there is only one investment in the world that starts on January 1st at zero and ends at a number above zero, and that is you,
Which is,
what
yeah.
you earn for your efforts. So I always tell people, whether you do it as a taxi driver, whether you do it as a CEO, you will end the year at a $1 more than you started. Okay. And that's not counting the investment. I'm talking investments go up and down, but you as a human being have the ability to use your brain power, your muscle power, your connections, whatever it is, to earn money yourself. So before you have money making money, try to think about how I, the individual, can make money for myself and my family. And then when you realize that you are the only investment in your portfolio that can never go negative, it will always start at zero and go something more than that, then take care of your biggest asset, which is you, your physical and mental being, your mental strength, and work on it. Learn more, talk to people, get more ideas, watch your health, watch your weight, and if you did that 20, 30, 40 years later, I don't care what happens, your investments go up and down, you've earned enough money to live comfortably and do what you want to do.
Brilliant.
So take care of yourself.
Brilliant. Wow. That's a big point, Jimmy. That's a really big point. Now, I'm going to get into a little bit of a soft area. I always meant I've seen you whenever I've talked to you, and the number of times we have talked, you always bring family into it. And I believe
Oh,
that
absolutely.
home is our recharging point. So, would you like to tell us something about that? How does family help you with this ROI on the personal front?
Oh boy, yeah. Well, that I am glad that came through because it's very, very important to me. So first of all is the love of your family. Not if you have the love of your family, you're going to get the respect from your family. You're going to have a closer family, and you can't demand love. You have to earn it,
Mhm.
right? So you have to give it to get it. So that's I think a pretty standard thing. But in my case, I've been blessed. First of all, I as I think I mentioned earlier, I married my best friend, and we're still the best friends. So that's great, and the children see that. But I think the good old saying, you have to lead by example. You've got to walk the talk. You can't demand something from your children when you don't do it yourself. Now, of course, I could be, as my children would look at this, they'll roll their eyes and say, "Oh, Dad," but for whatever it is, personally, I've never drunk a drop of liquor in my life. I've never smoked a cigarette. I've not done any illegal substance. In fact, I'll be a boring politician because there'll be no dirt, you know. But so the first thing is lead by example. Then the second thing is to impart values, not opinions. I've tried my best, and my wife and I try our best, even it's so hard in a day like today, where you always want to have an opinion and you want to make your children kind of brainwashed to that opinion. So I think that's a bit of advice I would give people with the family, which is in India. Growing up in India, it was almost like expected. You will basically be brainwashed. If your parents say you will be a doctor, you will be a doctor. You know,
Right.
if they say this is how you treat people from the, let's call it, less fortunate, that's how you will be. Sadly, because I grew up shoulder to shoulder with people who would treat the poorer members of society, so embarrassing
Sadly,
in
yes.
today's world. But our values, my values were, no, I put my arm around them. I know, coming from a culture like India and being in a philanthropic sort of a position, I would get people who would come and they would go down and touch my feet, and I would jump back and literally lift them up, put my arm around, say, take a picture. And so that's what I try to impart to my children
Wow.
and my family. Try to make people feel that you are one with them, not one above them. I think that's unfortunate. It's a lot of ego involved. The other thing, as I said, leading by example. As I narrated the story of my son, but I've also got two daughters,
Yes.
and my older daughter, I talked about Zubin, but my older daughter Jasmine, um, again, we didn't demand it, we didn't push it, but just by the sheer growing up in our family, when she went to the University of Southern California, all three of my kids went to USC. She went into communication, which is at the Annenberg School, and she minored in philanthropy, nonprofit, and leadership.
Wow.
Okay, because she kept saying, I want to be able to do what the type of stuff you've done, because since they were little kids, we've had what we call our dining table conversations as to where we should be spending some of our money. So they're aware of what we've done in the United States, what we've done in India, et cetera, et cetera. And today, my daughter, most of her friends are running off trying to get the highest paid jobs. Having graduated, they want to go and work on Wall Street and startups and Silicon Valley. And she chose to take a major pay cut in the sense of her, what she could get, to be a development officer, which is, fundraising at the Stanford Graduate School of Business. And her objective is, to learn from the best, which Stanford's clearly up there in the best, and then be able, she's already managing our personal family foundation. But believe it or not, Ian, if you asked her if she was on the call today, she would say one of her goals is to go to India and work at either a St. Joseph's or the Sheila Kotawala School for the Deaf, or we've got a school in Kandala and stuff. But she wants to go and spend time and actually work in an educational institution. Yes, later on, when she's in charge of everything, she'll put up the buildings, etc., but that's down the road. So philanthropy has always been something, family. It's been a family affair, not just one person making decisions. So I think that's kind of where family comes in, and you stay together, you work together, make decisions together, and give your family members at least some ability. So Jasmine today will make decisions, and she gives six-figure type commitments to, she manages three or four of the institutions that we support. She manages versus I certainly don't mean to be disrespectful to families in India. Families in India, the patriarch or the matriarch or whoever controls the purse strings makes all the decisions,
Generally happen.
and and then you've got the children or grandchildren sitting on boards like little puppets and saying, "Well, I have to go and ask my father or grandfather," you know. And I think that's something
Very
that I
good.
try not to do. I try not to do
Read
that.
yes. And I'm so
Yeah,
glad you did that, Jimmy. I'm so
yeah.
glad. So great. In fact, I always look up to the nice way that you talk about family and how you bring family into a lot of the conversations. But I would be failing in my job today if I didn't talk about your connection with the school. I
Hmm.
mean, St. Joseph's has played such a big role, almost to the extent of some people thinking that, you own the school. So,
Dear me, I hope not.
just saying, just saying.
Yeah.
But so what was that tie? What is it that really tied you up to the school so beautifully that, I mean, we're really grateful that you're there. And, I've said this publicly many times, we look up to you a lot. But what was it that made that tie so firm?
I think it's the same thing. We all drank the same water. I don't know what they put in it, you know. Of course, maybe that's why, God, touch wood, we haven't gotten COVID. Maybe because it's all the uh, sort of immunity that we built up drinking from those taps. But no, seriously, uh, I think it started one having an older brother. So he was 4 years older than me, and so when he went off to college I was still in school, and so I kind of got into this thing called the Old Boys Association even before I left school. There were stalwarts from the school, both from the academic side. I had, and you and I had the same. We had some teachers who inspired us so much
Right.
that you felt you wanted to, be in touch with them, and that drew you back to the school. But also, as I think you and I both shared, the love of things like cricket, so go and play and come back and play against the school. But I think it was within the first 2 years I joined the committee, the Old Boys Association, 1974, a year and a half after I graduated from school. And I think just the influence of people like Mr. Alec Alvarez, who was, an institution in himself, and my old principal, Father Hedwig de Costa. So they gave me responsibilities because when I was a young kid and I raised my hand to join the committee of, at that time, I think it was someone like Mr. George de Costa and stuff. And I had seen them as a schoolboy when I went to, OBA day, because I played for the school cricket team and we were invited for the so-called beer session,
Yes.
which of course I didn't drink. But I think from then on, it was just that I had the ability to help with accounting background. So I started taking a little bit of active role in the accounting. Fortunately, had a little money in the pocket. So every time we had a deficit, I remember sitting with the old accountant, Mr. Iyer, and we would have a couple of thousand, which in those days was a lot of money, a couple of thousand deficit on either the OB, Old Boys Day, or St. Joseph's Feast. And I would say, "Oh, how short are we?" And he would do his, with his glasses at the tip of his nose, he would tell me we're 1,700 and something dollars short. And I'd say, "Give me the ticket books." And I would tear out 1,700 worth of tickets and I'd give them the money so that we balanced it. So it was just that, this is my baby and we're not going to lose money and things like that. So as we moved on, of course, yeah, I had a little bit more financial, let's say, ability versus giving pocket money away. And I felt we need to dream big. So it was during 1980, I think, that we started thinking bigger with another Parsi, Homi Jijina,
Yeah.
who was the, at that time, the general manager of escorts. And Homi, I think, finally bit into my dream of let's make it big, you know. So we started changing from a 25,000 rupee, target to 2 lakhs target, and I would take, well, half of it and things like that. So I think school has always been the people you meet, the commitment. And it's, you can't just look at yourself. I think what's motivated me most at St. Joseph's is having people, including people like you, Ian, around and seeing how everyone throws their weight. People who have done so much for the school. Not all of it has to be money. If I were to measure the time that some people, including you, have put in, then my philanthropy is nothing compared to the amount of time and effort and stress that some of them have gone through. And I always think of people like you and Brian DeLima and others. It's just unbelievable. And of course, let's go back to people like Alec Alvarez, Dennis Norona.
Brilliant guys.
They put in so much of effort. So the school, and then again, as I said, I'm selfish. I want to make sure people understand I'm selfish. The satisfaction I got by taking care of so many things and seeing it sort of the flower just sort of blooming. And I remember in the early mid 70s when I started taking the accounts, the total corpus or the total amount of the assets was 125,000 rupees
Wow.
in 1970 something, and today it's in the tens of millions of rupees. You know, so to see that flower just blooming,
Awesome.
and and then I think part of leadership that you're interested in talking about is putting your money where your mouth is. And so that's another thing. So the OBA was always something that let's participate to make the blue and white a great success. So that became my baby. Until even after I came to the United States, the blue and white was my baby. I would go back to India, run the blue and white, and come back. So that was till the mid 80s or so. But in addition to that, was always I felt somebody needs to be a visionary. And yeah, maybe it was my financial stability that allowed me to make these bold statements, but making a dramatic change. And I've always believed if you make a change, make a dramatic change.
Mhm.
If you can, not everyone can do it. If you can make a dramatic change. So to me, certain moments that made a difference in my relationship and my, experience with this school was in 1998. A common friend and of course a former president of the OBA, Nadeem Ahmed, invited us to his house, with family, etc. This was the days of Father Michael John.
Mhm.
And Father Hedwig was there, and Father Ronnie Prabhu, God bless both their souls, were there. And we were chatting, just typical, you've had your biryani and now you're sitting around and chatting. And when it's all old boys, I mean, what do you talk about? The school, of course.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what it was. Maybe it just a thought. Maybe it was because I was getting involved with my children, my son's school at that time, and now the children went to the same school. So I was getting involved with that a little bit. And I said, I asked Father Hedwig and Father Michael John, I said, what is your 5-year and 25-year plan? Because businesses, we do 5-year strategic plans. Academic institutions, you should typically look at a 25-year plan because there's so much, because you've got
What's
generations.
happening? Yeah.
So, I mean, if you look at a 12-year school, I mean, it's just two cycles.
That's true.
You have to plan for at least 2 cycles.
Yeah. Sure.
So I said, what's your plan? And they, well, Jimmy, we don't know what next month is. And you're asking us, what's the plan for the next 25 years? So I guess it was like almost what I call a fireside chat at
Mhm.
Nadeem's house, that I simply said, well, let's look at just basic strategy. To make an educational institution, number one, you have to have a solid administration, no question. Curriculum. You also need infrastructure. You can have the best teachers, the best curriculum, but if the building is falling down on top of the children's head, that's not a good sign.
Yes.
And then if you have good curriculum, good administration to deliver that curriculum with good teachers, etc., you have a good infrastructure and a good, solid parent and old boy or old student network,
Right.
you can make the best school in the world.
Mhm.
So I said, I just visited the school and it was in a very sorry state. The building was 140 some years old, and I challenged them. I said, oh, I can't build the curriculum. That's your job. And we've always had a very good curriculum at St. Joseph's. We've
That's true.
academically done very well, but infrastructure was appalling.
Yeah.
Beautiful. We love the old building, but with some of the upper story being evacuated because it was too dangerous.
Yes.
I said,
Yes.
I said to Father Michael John, I said, Father, would you like St. Joseph's to be known as the school that collapsed and hurt or killed so many students, or would you like the school to be known for, being the best in so many other ways? And so on the spot, I don't know what got into me. I didn't consult my wife or anything. I said, let's rebuild the school. Let's build the whole school again. And there was talk of moving it to some other place. And I said, let's do it right here. And I don't know what happened. I just said, Father, why don't you build half the school and I'll build half the school? So I started with saying, okay, Jennifer and I will take care of one wing. And it took me literally a weekend. I came back to America and I called my classmate, God bless his soul, Mark Mascarenas. And I said, Mark, we're going to rebuild the school. And you and I have been sitting side by side from the first day we started at St. Anthony's. Mark sat next to me. The last day we left St. Joseph's, Mark sitting next to me. And I said, why don't we just have our lifetime? Let's put a building next to me. So you and I will be next to each other there. So can you give me one wing? And then I called Sabir, my, junior, much my junior Sabir. And I said, Sabir, Mark and I are going to do a couple of buildings. So will you do it? And he did that. And then the fourth person, who's, I think, one of the greatest old boys I've ever met. And I can't mention his name because it was anonymous. And I called him and said, Mark, Sabir, and I are going to do this. Would you do the next building, 4 buildings? And he did, as you know, the Alec Alvarez wing or whatever that's called. And so that's what I mean by leadership. You can't just go around and carry chairs from here and put them down there. You've got to really push. And sometimes dreaming big, see, if you dream big and you achieve 75% of it, you'd still achieve something dramatic. So it's been great, Ian. I have no regrets at all. My only hope is that the younger generation, who are far more successful, will take it to. I think I like to look at it as almost like a logarithmic. I'd like this next generation to do 10 times more, because if I look back on my 40 plus years since I left St. Joseph's, and whatever contributions made to it, I'd say, as I said, we went from 125,000 to today it's in tens of millions.
Yeah. Yes.
But I hope in the next, cycle of 30, 40 years, we magnify this by 100. So it really makes it such that children can go to St. Joseph's without having to even think about where the money's coming from.
That's brilliant. That's so brilliant. So, Jimmy, I'm really got into your mind in quite a deep way. I want to look at a bigger picture now. Do you have some sort of a legacy matter that you want to share? What is Jimmy's legacy?
Well, I think the thing about legacies, Ian, many people think that legacies are built only when someone's ready to move on to the next life or to the retirement and stuff. I think you build a legacy every day of your life. Every day of your life, you have to give back and start the day by saying, what can I do to make this world a better place? What can I do to make my family a better place? What can I do to make my school a better place? So I think I've been hopefully living that philosophy of mine, which is every day, every week, every month, every year, leave something behind. So when I look back in the rearview mirror today, yeah, for the past 30 some years, we've supported, I don't know, 30, 40 students at St. Joseph's. Again, it's not the numbers, it's the quality. I look at people, and if it's okay, I'm not sure if to mention the name, but there are many students, but the one that stands out the most today is Giridhar Nayak. We took on Giri in the 5th grade at St. Joseph's. That's when it started in those days, and followed him all the way. He's a member of my family today, if I could say that, and immensely successful. He's doing extremely well. And so to me, that's the legacy, that you've changed the lives. It's not just paying someone's tuition. Paying someone's tuition, I think that a lot of people, they just write a check, they don't care who the person on the other side is. I think changing someone's life, that's a legacy. The second thing is, it doesn't always have to be money. your legacy could be you inspired someone. It's soft. It's you can't measure it. But because someone looked at you or looked up to you or down to you or whatever, but emulated some things and caused them to do something that they wouldn't otherwise have done. To me, that's a legacy. And I think I've been able to influence some people to do things like that, you know.
Living
So
legacy.
it's basically to create a culture of giving and not arm twisting and making someone sign a check. So that's one major part of thing. But to me, I think the ultimate legacy is not about philanthropy and how much you give. It's about being a good person.
Right.
You know, at the end of the day, just being a good person, a decent human being, respecting others. You know, to me, that's the ultimate legacy. If ever, when someday when I'm gone, if someone could say, you know, he was a good man, not how much money he gave. That would be the ultimate. Yeah.
Now you know why I
So,
like you so much.
oh dear me, be careful. Yeah,
Jimmy,
see,
I
we
want
haven't
to.
talked about my cricket, you know.
Yeah, no. In fact, we should have a whole separate session on cricket because you're such a passionate guy. I know you own two teams now in the US, and you're doing so much of stuff even for the game. So I'm going to just ask you some quick rapid fire questions, Jimmy,
Sure.
if you don't mind, and just one word or one, two, 3 word answers or one sentence max. Your biggest regret.
I have no regrets.
Okay,
I have
brilliant.
no regrets.
Your biggest
Life's
achievement.
been life's been fantastic.
Okay, you're
I
not
have no
supposed to
regrets.
explain it. Just a
Okay.
quick answer. Your biggest achievement.
My family,
What do you love
greatest.
on the planet other than family?
Cricket, I guess.
It had to come to that. Who's your best teacher in school?
Father Hilario Fernandez.
Wow, he's a brilliant guy. He's brilliant. Yeah, and even on the sports side, I think he must have, given you a lot of encouragement. Okay, if there's one thing that you could change about the school, it would be.
Boy, that's a tough one. One thing that I could change: um, reduce class size.
Reduce the class size. If you had to advise Donald Trump on being a better man, what would you say?
Shut up.
Wow, I didn't expect that. Wow. Okay. Um, you said your wife was your best friend. What quality in you do you think made you her best friend?
She says I make her smile, I make her laugh.
Wow. You're a romantic man, Jimmy. I love that. And you're blushing, by the way. I don't know whether you know it.
I am, yeah. I can see myself, right? Yeah, wow.
Jimmy,
Well,
it's
I
been
guess I need some color too, you know.
oh, you've just been so amazing. So, Jimmy, I'm sure this video, a lot of Josephites are going to watch this. I'm just going to summarize this very quick and very easy for everyone. Jimmy, first of all, thank you for being on Mind Talks, and it's been a pleasure talking to you. I want to say a few things. Number one, very few people on the planet I know who can give like you do. And I want to compliment you and I want to thank you for that. The number two thing, how much you've done for the school. And by the way, I was the president that time when the building was being constructed. And I know how much of effort I put into getting the old boys to understand that the old building had to be broken. Otherwise, it's a danger.
Yes. Yeah.
And some of them said we will lie down in this on the, you know, in the
That's right.
field.
That's the
Can't touch.
drama. That's the drama that most people need to throw away.
Yeah. So, but they did the drama and we had to undramatize it. So, but thank you because you made the collection so easy and the building came up so fast, and I owe you one on that one. The last part of what I want to say is just your humility, just your goodness, the amount of people you're supported. I really wish we had more people like you on the planet. And
Thank you.
I want to say thank you from all of St. Joseph's to you for all the good work you've done. But more than anything else, I think thank you for being iconic. Thank you for being a good
Oh
role
dear.
model for a lot of us. And I owe you one on that as well. So when you're in Bangalore next time, we'll catch up.
Well, thanks, Ian. This was my pleasure, and anything I can do to help, always there.
Thank you so much. Love to Jennifer and the kids, and I'm sure they'll be as successful or probably more successful than you are.
Well, I think they're far more successful than me because they deal with me.
Yeah, and I think that's the legacy that I was talking about also. Thank you so much,
Yep.
Jimmy, and we shall see you soon. All the best, and may you continue to be the great guy you are.
All righty.
On
Thanks, Ian.
Bye bye.